Alrighty, well, welcome to another edition of After School Cinema Club.
He
My
turns it
name is
on.
Dylan. I am the writer out of the group. I am joined, as always, by Vaughn, the actor out of the group, and Jose, the director. We are here to talk about mostly two things. We're here to talk about D23. For those that don't know what D23 is, it is a Disney event that happens, I think, every 2 years. Basically, it is, like an Apple keynote type of thing where they just show off all of their fun stuff. It's big for fans, both on like the business side and theme park side, movies, TV, all that fun stuff. And then we're also going to be talking about the movie Borderlands, which we will probably have a lot of comments on, as we are maybe the only three people in the state of California that have seen this movie. So, gentlemen, how's your Sunday doing?
Man. So far so good. I will say, not to have a crazy pivot so early, but shout out to Big Von, my dad. Coming up in just 24 hours, it'll be 10 years since he passed. So I've been in a more reflective state. I've been trying to enjoy things a bit differently, honor our namesake. So I definitely need to go on a hike. If you didn't know, Montague means mountain peak or mountaintop. So I'm going to find my way to one of those in the next 24 hours. Other than that, I have feelings based on the movie we saw for this week, and I will save those feelings for then.
Okay.
Also, the D23 news, very exciting. I'm excited to dive into a lot of this stuff because I am fan of things and decisions that have been made.
Does anyone know what D23 stands for?
Disney 23, which makes no sense because they do it every 2 years.
That was my guess too. I don't know.
Oh,
I was wondering if you all know.
You positioned it like it was a trivia bit.
Oh, no.
You knew the answer, and so I was waiting for the person.
So I guess
there are 23 people at Disney whose name starts with the letter D.
It's because the company started in 1923. So it's D23 due to the starting in 1923. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was only founded in 2009, which I guess makes sense because I only really feel like I started to hear about it with a lot of the Marvel stuff and then Star Wars stuff, which all really began to kick off a few years after that. So I guess that makes sense. It's kind of a
when your fan base, I wouldn't say triples, but grows to that rate, you get to fold in a lot more people who are interested and invested. It makes sense to kind of have a branding thing to bring it all together.
They should call it WWWDC, Worldwide Walt Disney Conference.
Jesus. I'm sure Apple would sue.
I don't know. They got some Steve Jobs kind of stuff there.
Also, I don't think they own the rights to WWDC, right? Because it started before them.
Did it really? Isn't it I don't know if we should talk about this on pod.
Hey, moving on. Hey, my Sunday's great. Yeah, I just finished my coffee. It's got to kick in now. But, yeah.
Perfect. Great. My Sunday's also good. We are back to Sunday mornings, which I personally really appreciate because it had been... I think all of us apologize for the ridiculous release schedule that we've had this summer. It's summer, and, we've been enjoying ourselves. So moving forward, I think we're going to be going back to a mostly Sunday morning recording schedule.
Which means we'll probably miss the last day of D23, right? Because it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I don't think anything crazy gets announced today.
I was looking at the schedule.
I don't know. This is where I cut into crazy thing being announced.
Great, yeah. And it's then going to be not only is Marvel hiring, Robert Downey Jr., it's going to be I don't know, insert anything in Star Wars that's important. Just kidding. Nothing matters. But I was looking at the schedule just to make sure.
And also playing a variant of Doom.
He's actually starting as Wife Beater Kang. That's going to be the first variant. Okay, sorry.
Jesus.
But But
You
Vaughn,
could cast him as a variant of Hank Pym, and then that's like super on the nose. That's a slightly
is that
deeper
because
cut.
like the character Hank Pym or the actor Hank Pym?
No,
The
the
actor that
character
played
Hank
The
Pym, who's
character.
the first Ant Man, who notoriously slapped the Wasp. Like there was domestic violence in one of the comics.
Oh,
So that's
okay,
why
I
Hank
get you.
Pym as a character like had to kind of be skirted around. So the Ant Man we see, who's Paul Rudd's Ant Man, is Scott Lang, who was the second Ant Man. But the first Ant Man, as they are true to the story at least, is Hank Pym. But there's also just like that weirdness of him having slapped the Wasp.
So I'm guessing it was more of like, I mean, it wasn't like a fight then. It was like or were they like in a relationship and slapped her? Because I feel like
Yeah. No,
comics.
no,
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like,
they've
comics. I
always
feel like
been
just
a
have
couple.
intergender fighting, you know, for years. It's like
No,
old
no,
school
this was a
WWE. Yeah,
domestic
I
abuse
get you.
dispute.
I see. Makes more sense.
It was a different time, you know.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Sadly, Vaughn says, wishing it was back in that time.
How dare you? Besmirch my good name.
Okay, D23. So I think some of these we're just going to kind of like blitz through of just like, hey, these are things that happen. I don't know if we have too much of a take on them, and then we can probably dive into, you know, if there's other stuff that we think is more important. I guess I'm going to focus on some of the non-core Disney stuff first, and just kind of talk about the now like Disney at large. So first thing first, Avatar 3 is called Avatar Fire and Ash. I think that is a super boring name, but gotcha.
The hater.
Tron, which I guess is technically kind of full Disney, but I do think it's different. Tron Ares is going to be the third movie. It's starring Jared Leto. That's not the news. The news is that the score is going to be done by none other than Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, a.k.a. Nine Inch Nails. I thought it was weird that they decided to use the Nine Inch Nails name instead of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I think it's just because the Nine Inch Nails audience is older and probably remembers the first Tron movie anyways. So they want to kind of like hop in on the name, even though it's like the same project, just that they go by different names when they're doing different things.
Smart pull.
Those were kind of the main, I guess, like non-core Disney stuff. Other than that, price hikes coming. That's the big thing. Price hikes are going to be coming across the board on Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. And then I guess from an MCU standpoint, the one thing that we can talk about, John Barenthal officially back as the Punisher. So I guess that's the first thing maybe to dive in on. I actually never watched the Punisher show. From the little clips I saw, it seemed very, very cool. I love John Bernthal as an actor. I actually think he's super talented and has a ton of rage, even though he's typecasted as these like badass types. But I don't know, to y'all, what do y'all think?
John Berthal was in Origin.
Yes, he was. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to. When you talk about range, check that out.
Yep.
The Bear too. So good in The Bear.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
And John Bernthal also from DC.
Oh
Is
wow.
that from Philly?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I just figured he was from Philly. I don't know why. I just got like a Philly vibe from him.
And I want to, don't quote me, I want to say he went to Sitwell Friends. But anywho,
Oh, wow.
I'm excited because he was excellent as the Punisher. And I think, you know, for all of the issues, and I think it was mostly like the licensing and however they like the legality issues of the characters who were like the street level heroes on the Netflix Marvel shows versus the cinematic heroes versus the ABC TV heroes. I love that like Netflix got a lot of the casting really right. And John Bernthal as Punisher is one of those absolutely right casting options. So I love that he gets to continue to explore that character.
Speaking of casting and Netflix, I guess this is the time to talk about it. So someone put it in someone talked about the Iron Fist stuff with some of the new like Marvel animated shows that are coming out. Iron Fist, the comic book character, looks 100 times cooler than Iron Fist, the Netflix character. And I just kind of want to put that out there that this guy looked like a methed out, like in sync era Justin Timberlake, and then the comic book version looks so much cooler. And like, what's going on with that?
Did you ever watch the Netflix show?
I
Like all the way?
Not Iron Fist. The only one I really
No.
actually ever watched, to be honest, and I watched I think the first season of Jessica Jones, which was pretty solid. And then for some reason I just didn't watch any of the other ones, even though like I always thought Daredevil and the Punisher looked really good. I just never watched them.
No,
Yeah.
they were. Iron Fist is a tricky character, and I feel bad for what's his name, Finn Jones. I think that's the actor's name who played him. He it never did quite settle in, and so some of that is him, and some of that is like them having cast him because if I think I can do the job, yeah, I'll take the job, but I think it's a casting thing. I don't think it was quite right. Um, the other thing is and we talked about this a little bit with Deadpool and Wolverine, but the to be bold enough to trust the comic accurate portrayal, and I think we got a piece of that in Iron Fist, the show, for like one episode, which was kind of technically a flashback, but we never really saw him have the full like I call it a do rag, the full like do rag like eyes slits like which can be legitimately badass, and also the bright green like suit. Everything was a lot more muted because the world is supposed to be grittier and like dingier, but I think none of that did him any services. So yeah, if they take the audience reception to seeing Hugh Jackman in the yellow and blue Wolverine suit to heart, and they start to, and even uh, I'll say spoilers, but I won't say names. Other characters who we've been waiting to see on screen, to see those characters in this movie be more comic accurate to their outfit. I think now the execs can trust that we like and can handle the wackier quote unquote looks.
I always thought Iron Fist was a bit problematic. I mean, from like the Netflix show, he's a white guy who goes to Tibet because he's rich and just like trying to find like some spirituality about him, and then he becomes this legendary figure of the Iron Fist, and then to be running around New York with a do rag is just like, come on, man, you know.
And to be fair, there's probably predominantly white dudes running around New York City wearing do-rags, just to be honest. That culture has been appropriated in that city. Heavily.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another thing that didn't really do him much service is that people were. That's when wokeness, as a wider phrase in term,
As a
was
mind
coming to
virus.
light. Hmm?
As a mind virus.
Yeah. Uh, and like that is the truth of the origin of that character. And I think
Wokeness?
they could have done other different interesting things to help bring it to light. But yeah,
So he always goes to like Tibet. It's not like a Batman Begins scenario where they like have him in this like weird Asian
I think if I remember the
country.
show, he like he's on a plane, like a private plane, and he's like a bit of a douche, and then the airplane like crashes in like the Himalayas, and then he like is like near death, and then some Tibetan monks like rescue him and then teach him to be humble, because like the show is him coming back to his like company, and his company is like, who the fuck are you, you know? It's not good.
Yeah,
It's my least favorite of the
Nolan
Netflix.
really just stole this origin story for Batman Begins. That's
yep.
crazy. That's nuts.
He, as a child, crashes in the Tibetan mountains. Monks find him, teach him their ways. And yeah, I think it's just tricky to have a character who's already found that inner peace, like be the protagonist, because the conflict is all external. And yeah, I think that was the core issue with his character.
All right, and that
But the
was After
Defenders was
School
cool.
Iron Fist. So other than that, I kind of want to talk about the most of the issues then that I have with D23 and Disney as a whole.
So the rest
the rest of the news, because this, for the most part, minus a few exceptions, is full blown nostalgia bait, and I what we will talk about on the podcast, expected more out of the two of you. I expected better, and you failed to meet my expectations as a friend, not even as a co-podcast hosts. And
Wait,
Wait,
what's the
I
attack
wanted to
from?
let you.
I'm confused. What?
So the reception and reaction y'all have had in the little bit that we have talked about to what was announced, and I was upset by. So
wait.
What?
Birds,
you know this.
loins.
We talked about this. We talked about this before the pod. Don't try to we very briefly where I was like, oh, I'm upset, and we could talk about it more on the pod. Anyways, so they announced.
Listen,
The
I
Incredibles
went to a
3.
Disney cruise once. Okay, I can quit whenever. I'm not all right. I'm not addicted.
Who else here has gone to a Disney cruise? Because I think going to a Disney cruise means that you are already lost. Okay,
Highly
first
recommend
thing,
it.
Incredibles 3 announced. Toy
Yay.
Story 5, which I think had technically already been announced, was more unveiled. Directed by the same guy that did Wall-E and Nemo, not Finding Dory. A new Mufasa trailer. Apparently, Mufasa was an orphan, and Scar was the true king. That seems like a weird way to introduce that story. Frozen 3 concept art, and it's also going to be a 2-part movie. I love that. And then the other major thing as well, a Moana 2 trailer, fine with that. And then Lilo and Stitch live action. So I think most of this is disgusting, to be completely honest, but what do you think?
Whoa.
We're just gonna blow over you thinking it's disgusting and not explain why.
Yeah, come on. Did you have a childhood?
I did have a childhood. I loved most of these movies as a child. I'm 30 years old. I don't need to have my memories made in my childhood. I don't need to have refed to me as an adult. This is the same issue that Star Wars has. This is the same issue that another Disney property, where it's just like, we can only live in this little world between 1979 and 1984, and nothing else that has ever happened can happen in our Star Wars world. And the fact that Disney is like, we're taking everything that happened in 92 to 04, 06, maybe, and just live in that world of movies and just keep on milking that cow until it is completely dry and devoid of ideas. Andrew Stanton, who's going to be the director of Toy Story 5, it's the first Toy Story movie he's directing. He directed Wall-E and Finding Nemo. Wall-E is one of the best movies that Disney or Pixar has put out. And it's just like, let that person go in a more kind of creative way than just making, oh, it's about screens. Sick. Awesome. Love it. Like, what a fucking great, like, I need new creativity, not rehashing the same shit that worked like 20, 30 years ago. And it's going to make so much money. And I know it's going to make so much money. And I know that like Disney's in a not as profitable state, but it's just very frustrating.
What's the last Toy Story movie you've seen?
I saw Toy Story 4. It was good.
So what's the issue?
I would like new stories. This is the inverse of like, I want the Russo brothers to direct Marvel, and you want new people to direct Avengers movies.
You want new like Disney IP then?
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to let the creative people like take some chances. I loved Encanto. I loved Coco. Like when they I liked Luca. I liked Turning Red. I think it's cool when they can maybe like do some stuff outside of like, hey, this worked when, Clinton was president.
But it's like it also worked when Obama was president. And I think is the part where we're glossing over. Like, yeah, these IPs
I don't have a
started.
counter to that. That's fair.
Like, I think it's cool to see like more stories, more adventures from existing IP, and I think it's cool to see newer stories as well. I wonder if maybe like Wish has something to do with some of this. in that Wish did not do well commercially. I did get a chance to see it. I hate that I didn't see it in theaters, but I got it. It made sense. It kind of ties. It's like an origin story for all of Disney, truly. But uh, looking at that and then looking at how these sequels and threequels and quintequels, like how they perform. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine. Other news, I think today is the day it's going to cross 1 billion,
Yeah.
if
Wow.
not
I
tomorrow.
mean, Inside Out 2 shattered that, like, just comfortably, just made so much money.
So what the execs are seeing, the note they're taking away is people want more of the same. People want to see characters they know do different things. And
I
I
will
don't think
also
that's
say,
necessarily true, but I do want to see. I want it, like I've been wanting more Incredibles content since the first one, which was like 04, 05.
I love
And
The
it took them
Incredibles.
forever.
Probably my favorite Pixar movie.
you didn't
Incredibles 2
watch
not a
Incredibles
fan?
2.
I didn't see it. I think when it came out, I was in a like I don't know the exact year that it came out, but I don't know if I was like a full blown like movie psycho yet.
2 would have been 17 or possibly 18.
Yeah, I was. That was a rough time in your boy's life. Wasn't really checking out too much
2018.
stuff. Slightly less rough, but still rough part of your boy's life.
Yeah.
But to piggyback off of that, Incredibles came out in 04, Frozen came out in 2013. So if you're saying that your problem is that there's no new IP, there's 2 examples of new IP that are just like circling around.
Well, Frozen, yeah, I wouldn't say The Incredibles. I wouldn't say The Incredibles is new IP. Incredibles, that is peak Pixar. And I said like up to 06. I was like 90s to like 04. So that is like when they were in their bag. And then when they take chances, you get Frozen, you get Wall-E, you get Encanto. I think you get Coco. You are able to get stuff that I still think is fresh and new. Yes, they had Elemental, which was poor. Yes, they had Wish that was poor. But I don't know. I think it's going to be good. It's done by the guy that did Finding Nemo and Wall-E. Like I think this movie is going to be very good. But I think the downside of this is that less and less chances get taken because you take someone that's really talented and you just only put them in like this fucking cow that you are going to milk until there's nothing left to it.
The only
Elemental
thing
was
that's
good.
been... Wait, which one?
Elemental.
I thought the animation looked really cool.
Yeah, I think didn't they have some like new advancement in tech to be able to even do that film?
Yeah. And that has always been my thing with Disney Pixar's animation. It's just like they have and that's why, circling back to the first thing you mentioned, that's why I'm excited for Avatar 3. I know there was a big, when the Avatar 2 came out, Vaughn, I think, was like really against it. And I was able to like get my point across to make him understand why. Did you not like it either? You don't like it either, huh?
I didn't like the movie, no, and I didn't agree with your thought on it's a $2.5 billion tech demo, and this is why it's good.
It is. And Avatar 3 will be another tech demo for fire and smoke physics,
Look,
which is why it's called Fire and Ash.
Name is fucking like oh my god, I'm so like it just
the way of the water, bro. The way of the water.
I
You
understand.
think that was a better name?
No, I don't. I'm not here for that. Fire like CG and shit like that is terrible most of the time. So like I am here for like I'm all for like James Cameron like making changes on that. It's just like no one gives a shit about these movies. No one cares about these movies at all whatsoever or can tell you any of the true story beats at all whatsoever.
That's like saying no one cares about the test footage at like a Best Buy when the TV is showing off like its colors and shit. Like, yeah, no one cares about the footage being
explained. How much do you think Magnolia spent on that test footage?
A lot. They spent a lot on that test footage.
I don't think they spent $2.5 billion.
But no, but they did spend a lot. They did spend a lot, and the people who care about like the Avatar for their advancements in CGI are the people behind the scenes who are like, I want to license them for this project, or I want to borrow their tech for this project over here. Like Weta FX is one of the namesakes in CGI, and because of the Avatar movies, And I think ILM and I think LucasArts too are all like part of that like
Yeah.
Disney branding that just like are advancing the tech. And a lot of the animation side, like a lot of that trickles down into animation, which is why Elemental looked so good because of the water stuff, right? And Incredibles 2 looks so good because of the animation, and Toy Story 4 looks so good because of their animation. So there will be one or two small things in these upcoming like animated films that like to the normal person might not be the most like eye catching or might not be the most like interesting thing about them. But for the people who care about this sort of industry, it'll blow their freaking minds. Like,
I'm gonna be honest though, like I just think that James Cameron could probably find a way to make this tech and have it still look really good and still like and probably be able to license it and make more money than just like this bullshit movie that like people are numb to these things. People go and see them just because it's like, oh wow, yeah, the first one really made a lot of money for no real reason. But like let's go see the second one, which then also made a ton of
But
money
I wouldn't say it
for
was no known reason. It was the first 3D movie to like really popularize the genre because right after Avatar 1, everything was in 3D and 3D movies and 3D games and everybody was just so hype on the 3D like idea because of Avatar.
I
Can
will
you tell
say
me another character besides Jake Sully? Probably not. But
that's a problem.
it's not though.
to your point, and just stay with me for like 2 seconds. To Jose's point, first Avatar movie comes out, it's 3D, it's IMAX, and I had heard of the format before then, but I had never really seen anything in that format. Now, I don't really see many things not in that format. And so you think about like the number of movies people see over a period of time times the number of like the difference in cost of a standard ticket versus an IMAX screen times the millions of people that's going to have an effect on it does push the genre. It does. I think it's affecting people in more ways than we realize. Like I agree that the story was just okay for Avatar, but it did make me enjoy and understand the importance of IMAX. Same thing with Way of the Water. I wasn't really feeling it. Jose brought me to the light, and I was like, okay, actually, yeah. The second viewing, I got a chance to really take in all like the how impressive seeing all the like the light particles moving underwater and all of that. It also, from a story perspective, I thought it was really cool to see that like they spent a lot of time being intentional about like what animals would exist and like in the like creating these new creatures based on the like the climate and the temperature and all like the atmosphere is really cool. So for me, fire and ash, the thing I'm the most interested in, like yeah, I'm sure the fire physics and ash physics and all that stuff is going to be cool and impressive and push the genre forward or push the tech forward. But I'm just curious to see like what his mind comes up with in terms of the world and the story and the characters or creatures, I should say. The characters are going to be whatever. I think it's Jake and them go to another tribe. It's a fire
To
tribe.
the Fire
It's a
Nubby.
little
Yeah.
different. Homeboy comes back. I guess I don't know what happened at the end of the last one. Did somebody die? I
I
don't know.
think he
Maybe they
lived. I
did.
think Quaritch lived. Um, I think, which is awesome.
But yeah,
The slight a slight note to that. It's like a bit of a history with the first Avatar. Like to your point, Vaughn, about James Cameron's like world building. He hired a whole team specifically designed to create the soundtrack for Avatar to incorporate like the environment, the atmosphere, the culture. Like he had a team so involved in this fictional world to create instruments and musics and rhythms that will fit in this world. And the only reason why they're not in the movie is because they were too alien. So they went with a more traditional score. But the people who worked on it are like so passionate about how much like dedication he went into like creating the soundtrack to make it feel from Pandora. I think the only thing that made it in the movie was the chant when they're trying to revive Sigourney Weaver.
yeah.
Um, like the group chant. Like that's the only thing that was like kept from their entire efforts to make something so alien. And that's another reason why Avatar is great. But let's just circle back to
In the
animation.
counter, super quick, to counter and to say to Dylan's point, Ludwig Van Goranson does incredible stuff with music, and he uses existing instruments and existing worlds. So I think about like Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever. There was a lot of incorporation to like traditional African instruments and stuff, and like that I'm sure cost a lot less money in R&D at the very least. But so yeah, it's innovation, but at what cost?
I agree. Because it got
Think
scrapped.
of
So
think of how many projects you would be able to fund with that money.
you keep bringing this up whenever we talk about budget, though, because going back to the Apple argument, like who else but Disney? They are printing money. Their stock
They're
probably went up. Is
not.
going to go up this weekend. Their stock's going to go up this
Their
weekend because of
their
all the
stock.
D23 announcements.
It went down. But it went down on Friday. But like they're not just like printing money. To the point here, their streaming turned a profit for the first time this quarter. And I don't know if you saw in the notes. Do you know what that profit was?
50 million.
$50 million. Do you know how much money they've lost total in streaming since they
12
pushed
billion.
Disney Plus?
I see your notes right here.
Billion with
12
a
billion.
dollars.
I'm reading your notes.
They lost $500 million in streaming last quarter alone. Their Marvel movies, minus Deadpool and Wolverine, are making significantly less money. The parks, there's a cool down in interest in the parks right now. I'm not here being like, oh hey, Disney, better than ever, or like, oh, I'll sound the alarms, like short Disney. It's just like, look, this movie that they're going to spend $2 billion on, not even incorporating marketing, has to make $2.5 to $3 billion to make money. Like,
But they're going to make
$50
that.
to $100 million, maybe. How many?
No,
50
for
to
sure they're going to make that. Looking at Avatar is the highest grossing movie of all time.
Sure, when they had to put it out again the second time because it got beat by Infinity War, but yeah.
But I mean, that was just like
Avatar-
another 100 million bump.
Yes, look, there's a lot of things that ended the reason why the first Avatar made a lot of money, and part of it is like, yes, because of 3D, and they kept it in theaters for over a year. Like, it was just one of those things of where it was I think potentially also during the writer's strikes, there was a lull in movies. There was like a lot of things that kind of led to it, like having this like crazy long run. Look, man, I'm James Cameron. I have like I think he's a very important figure in movies. I think he's done a lot of very good things. I just don't know if like, oh hey, the spending $2.5 billion for these type of physics. There's other ways that
Where are
money
you
can go, and
getting?
you don't
Where are
really
you
spend that
getting
much money.
$2.5 billion from though?
He said that the second movie was going to have to make $2.5 to $3 billion to turn a profit. That's what he said.
But I think they're going to make
though.
that money in places and in ways that we don't necessarily account for. Like, yes, there's the box office numbers, but there's also the the streaming. There's also the sales from like people purchasing via iTunes. There's to incorporate parks, people who will go to the parks for those experiences. Like, I think about people who love Star Wars, like Rise of the Resistance, and just go to Star Wars or just go to Disney World or Disneyland for the Rise of the Resistance experience.
I'm sure there's Avatar fans. Let's not pretend that level of fandom is anywhere close to like Star Wars sickos.
Dare I say the Avatar fans could be overseas? Because I think the first park to have like an Avatar land with like the Avatar rides is overseas. I don't remember if it's like Singapore or China, but one of the other Disney parks has the Avatar world. So there could be an entirely different audience on the other side of the planet who are big Avatar people.
Yeah, like how like Venom was like massive in China. Yeah, somehow.
And I'll be there. I'm going to say that up front. Yes, I will be in theaters for Venom 3.
And I'll be right behind them.
I'm not excited about it.
The Last Dance.
I hear you though, Dylan. I think if, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a part of this is also just recognizing the amount of money they spend on existing IP, hoping to turn a profit. They could be investing in new IP and new ideas and new creators to tell their stories. Is that
Or
fair to say?
even just like, yeah, yes, and also even put 100 to 150 million in a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie that can maybe take a slight chance. And again, with the Marvel
They
stuff, they went that way and it didn't really work out. But I do think that
No.
with the Star Wars stuff, I definitely think that they can go that way with Star Wars.
the problem is, and we kind of touched on it on previous episode, it's that they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to just turn a profit. So they're going to take the safest route and just milk out Toy Stories and
I
Incredibles and
cannot
Frozen's.
believe you are becoming a capitalism shareholder fucking simp right now. This is disgusting.
I would
No,
argue
that's your
both of
that
y'all
was your
sound
point. That was your point the previous episode, dude.
The moves are also good, and people care about them, and they have iconic like. At the end of the game, Endgame, which is a slightly has like some slight problems as a movie, but like the fact that it even remotely works is a credit into itself. Like Infinity War and Endgame have moments that are going to like there are so many people whose like cinematic like those that's a core cinematic memory for a lot of people where characters and lines and scenes are going to be like etched into people's brains that Avatar does not have, and people saw it because they're like supposed to see it because it's like entered this weird pop culture lexicon where it's just like, yeah, it's this thing that's popular. Why is it popular? It looks good, kind of, or it did 15 years ago, and now this one's about
It
water, and the next
looks
one's about fire.
they look phenomenal. You take that back.
but
It's good.
we loop that back, and then that tech that does make the stuff look good, even though the story may not be incredible, now means that the IP you do care about gets to look even better and keep
Hmm.
you invested in the story because the tech is there to help uplift it.
It's like when people it's like when people talk about like F1 or WEC or like any sort of like motorsport where there's like a big sponsorship, and it's like, why are they spending so much money on this thing? It's because that tech that is in that sport will eventually trickle down to the road cars that we have today. Eventually.
Maybe, or it's just like what any tech company can just like the BS they're gonna spin. Like to be honest, I'd be very curious to know how this tech costs so much money, and it's somehow then not going to cost a ton of money for the next one, or like it's just one of those things of movies are costing more and more and more, and you look at some of the budgets for some of these movies that are just absolutely insane, and you look at then like sometimes movies that cost 20, 50, 100, 150 million look significantly better than the movies that are costing twice that. Something isn't adding up here. Like it's not that money is either not being spent correctly or is going somewhere in some weird way that isn't adding up.
I
And
mean,
I just don't think that. There you go.
I think that a lot of it is R&D, it's trial and error, and it's we're going
Hmm.
to shoot this way with this kind of lens and this kind of camera, and nope, that didn't work out, so we're going to reshoot it. And now, like once I've gone through that process 6 times, you only have to go through it twice, so that you get to save on that. I think ultimately having not $1 billion to invest in any individual property myself, I support it. It's like I'm just here watching the things happen, and yeah, I want to support advancement in storytelling, and I do think in its own way, thanks to Jose's enlightening conversation that we had however long ago when the Avatar: Way of the Water came out, uh, I get it. It makes sense to me.
Also, Avatar only it did 230 million in China, which is actually really not like
Huh.
anything crazy. Like
It's not
that's not like
China.
it. That's but like yeah, I'm like looking at the international stuff. It like did 120 million. Sorry, 140 million in France and 130 million in Germany, which is actually far more impressive considering the population of those two countries compared to the population of China. But yeah, there's not like that I'm seeing. It's not like there's any. I think China was like the highest international, but like just seems like I made a lot of money everywhere. That's all. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just not my thing. Happy for fire. Yay.
When this means that Lisan Al Gaib gets to walk through fire and you believe it,
The CG in Dune already looks really good. And maybe if there's
You're
a
welcome.
desert one, if the
You're
fourth
welcome.
one, there's no water or fire. There's no water or fire. It's a desert planet. There was fire before. There's certainly no water, and they drove to Africa where beaches meet the sand, and you can just film it there and still have it look not of this world, but it actually is of this world, and it's way cheaper and looks better too. So like sometimes you can make the little bit of extra effort to just like have someone find the set to shoot, and you don't have to spend a couple $1 billion. You
And
just have to
sometimes you
work
do.
hard.
That's such a boomer take, dude. That's like saying, "Oh, I'm mad that NASA spent like X amount of dollars to go to the moon. What good is that going to be?" And then you cut to
No, that's totally
2024
different.
where the technology. No, it's investment in technology and research to create an advancement for everybody else.
Dude, this movie is a defense contractor. This movie is Northrop fucking like this movie is Lockheed Martin, and you're justifying why we need to spend this much in like defense contractor money. You can find places and find ways to not it's just hard it's just more work. It's easier to spend money, it's harder to do the work. It's harder to find the sets, it's harder to find ways to do it a
Well,
little bit cheaper. It's easier
people are
just to
still
throw
working.
money at the situation. Yes, people are still working. Yes.
It's still hard work for the people involved. Again, that's like saying, "Oh, those guys who just are on their computers, they're not working. They're not out. They're in construction, they're plumbing or whatever." It's like, yeah,
I'm
they're
not talking
working.
about the trades. I'm not talking about the trades. Do not equip what I'm doing to people working in the trades. And the people that are working at desk jobs, if you have any friends that work in desk jobs, I guarantee you most of the time they are not working. I have one of my closest friends will send me things in Excel. It's like ranking the Marvel movies and like all 25 of them, ranking the Lord of the Rings movies, including The Hobbit, including the extended editions, while on the clock. Like just sometimes the money's just kind of getting spent. And I'm different for movie making, and I understand that. But like, you can find ways to not spend as much money. That is
I'll agree to that. I'll agree to that. Vaughn?
Vaughn.
Oh, am I obligated to agree or disagree to that?
No, just more curious.
No.
You don't have to pick a side.
Yeah, you're in the middle for
I'm
me.
expecting to be in the minority on this, which is fine.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I've spoken my piece in that. Like, I understand why this money gets spent this way. I think if it means that it pushes everything forward, and I do think that's at least that's what I've seen so far. In some way, that is going to be true. Then I support it. And the things that don't resonate with me, that don't speak to me, I'm learning better. We were talking about this a little bit before we hopped on pod, but I'm learning to like not necessarily feel like I have to be a part of or support as much. And like I'm thinking about the Star Wars universe, where not for mostly because of Finn, like that was very difficult to experience, but as a result, I feel like I got burned, so I will maybe catch a Star Wars thing. If it's a movie, I'll probably catch it, but I'm not as invested in the Star Wars IP because of that, and so I don't put my money there. But also, I don't know how much we get to say in how any of this money gets spent. Uh, because if I just to go to a more general space, if I like have a Disney Plus subscription, which they're now going to get more money out of me because of the price hikes, or if I go to a park, or anything where it's more general, unless I specifically buy a Jake Sully, action figure in the park or wherever, I can't dictate where the money goes and where the money gets spent or how they. I can just invest my time in the things I care about. And for that reason, that's a big reason why I go and support the Marvel movies at least twice opening weekend, because I want to show them that, like, this is how I want my dollar to count. This is how I want you to invest. And so I make sure that they see that in the numbers. That's a part of why I always get concessions when I go to the movies, even if I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
I want to support the thing, and I want to put my dollar in a place where I can see it grow. And I do think, in a wild way, we don't really have a say in where our dollars go. Just like I could want my money to not go to war profiteering, but the taxes go to wherever they need to go. I could want my money to be invested in the Marvels 3, where we see more of Carol Danvers and the like. But if they decide we're going to get Iron Man 6 or whatever, then that's what happens. Like, I don't have as much control. And so I invest in the things I care about, and I let go of the stuff I don't. I will also say, super quick, I know the parallel does not quite hold up. And everybody in film is working incredibly hard.
Yes.
Every single person. There is no spare ball.
Yeah,
because I know you say
I don't think
the best jobs often aren't. I want to be very clear that there is not a single person in film who is not working their ass off.
Yeah, and I want to, and that isn't, but I don't mean that that money is just stacking up doing nothing, but more so in the sense of it is just this ballooned budget. It is just they are spending so much in an insane amount of money, almost just for the sake of spending that much money. I think a better comparison than I might make, which isn't really something that either of you give a shit about. Before college athletes were allowed to be paid, the NCAA was a nonprofit organization, and these colleges, which were making buckloads of money due to TV contracts, had to find a way to not be making a ton of money, which is why you would see the locker rooms and the workout facilities of these top programs are just insane, nicer than NFL teams, because they had to find ways of just no, we're not making money. Anyway, here's this $100 million workout facility. And then next year, here's this $100 million locker room. And then they're building brand new campuses and all these new buildings on campus and shit like that. It's just in a way of you just find ways to spend that money, and it's a little bit different because you're not it's not an investment in it. Well, it is an investment out of college, but not in the same way as a movie where it's we're going to spend $100 million on this movie and hope that it makes $1 billion, or we're going to spend $1 billion on this F-16 and hope that it can
level a small village.
Yeah. Beat the 5th generation fighters.
Shout out to Top Gun.
Shout out to Top Gun.
But yeah.
Alrighty. Want to talk about Borderlands?
Let's do it. All right. Let's do our class roll call super quick. Director, Eli Roth. Writers, Eli Roth and Joe Crombie, but also he's Joe Abercrombie. IMDb gets weird.
Well, do you know who that is?
No.
So that's Craig Mazin. Craig Mazin, who wrote Chernobyl and The Last of Us, he wrote the original script for this movie, and it went into production hell, and it's expected that he has said that he has removed his name from this. But when you search that name on Google, it goes, this is a pseudonym used by Craig Mazin. But Craig Mazin has publicly said he's I have nothing to do with this movie.
I wonder why. Let's get into the rest of our class roster. We have, and there's a lot of folks here, so I'm just going to say a bunch of names, and if I miss a name you care about, I apologize and just say that name. Kate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, Jamie Lee Curtis, Ariana Greenblatt, Jack Black, Gina Gershon, Edgar Ramirez, and Florian Montaño.
Shout out to Bobby Lee.
Shout out to Bobby Lee.
Shout out to Bobby Lee. There were a couple other names, so I was just like, I am done listing names. So, are y'all fans of the Borderlands games at all? Have y'all played Borderlands?
Let me get out ahead of it. Never played it.
Okay.
Never played it. I've seen a lot of the
cool.
gameplay. I know the shell shaded art style, all that fun stuff. For some reason, it's just like I never played it.
Borderlands is my favorite shooter. So I have played almost every Borderlands game.
I am so sorry.
I've played every Borderlands game at least 3 times, with the exception of the Dungeons and Dragons spinoff thing that they did most recently. That being said, I was nervous initially just at the cast list, and not from an actor standpoint, but from a character standpoint, because the characters they have included have ranged from characters from the first Borderlands to the sequel to some featured in the pre-sequel. It kind of seemed like it was a mad grab of a bunch of characters, and they said, okay, we're going to put these folks together and see what happens. And let me go back. When I first played Borderlands, I was asking the guy at GameStop, like, what's the deal with this game? I just picked it up. It was like, what's up with this one? Which is why I miss people being able to congregate in spaces. That's why I love my comic shop. Shout out to Collector's Paradise. But the guy said, it's a fun shooter. It's really about getting as much loot as you can. And the highlight of the game is that it randomizes your loot completely. So you and your friend could loot the same pistol, and it's going to be configured differently. It's going to have different add-ons and whatever. And I said, okay. And the copy I picked up was Borderlands 2 because they didn't have any Borderlands 1 games. And I was like, what about the first one? What do I need to know from the first one before I start this one? And he said, honestly, not much. Borderlands isn't really about the storyline. So I want to start there. Because then I played Borderlands 2, went back to Borderlands 1, and for the most part, it's true. You don't really have to follow the story. It's really about the randomizing and the loot and having fun with wacky guns. That said, there are incredible story beats and incredible moments that have happened across all 3 games that have been completely left out because they involve almost none of the characters that are in this movie. I am very upset at some of the casting. Like, Kevin Hart as Roland is not a good casting option. Simply just, and we're still in non-spoiler territory, simply because Kevin Hart is, and not that height has to be a factor, because Hugh Jackman is a foot taller than Wolverine's supposed to be. Kevin Hart is maybe a foot shorter than Roland is supposed to be. Kevin Hart also, as he characterizes Roland, is not the same stoic militant, because these characters are pretty much archetypes. They don't really deviate a whole lot. But Kevin Hart, just in and of himself, is way too sarcastic and way too comedic of a person when that has never been the function of Roland in the Borderlands series. Tiny Tina, who's a character we only meet in Borderlands 2, is played amazingly by Ariana Greenblatt, but I feel like they still played it safe because a big thing with Talking Tina is that she uses a lot of ridiculous language, and she talks I don't know how else to describe she talks like a black girl. Damn, honey, you go, or not even black, she talks like an 80s guy trying to mac on somebody. But it's funny in that it's this little white girl doing this stuff. Ariana Greenblatt, I think, did amazing. I think most of the actors did a great job, did the best job they could. I think
I'll talk about that later.
I think the larger issue is that this is just in a Borderlands world but none of the things that are actually unique to Borderlands actually show up in this movie. So like I was ready to see a lot of different guns and tech and crazy like abilities, which is the draw of the game. That's what separates it. That's why you pick up Borderlands and not Call of Duty. And we got none of that. Like people stuck with the same one gun, or like there are some vehicle things that happen, but for the most part, none of the cool super advanced tech stuff that's a part of the Borderlands universe showed up in this movie. And that's before we even get into the story. I've been talking a lot. What do y'all think?
Oh, that's a good question. Is Borderlands also like a raunchy kind of game? I mean, I know the only reason I say this is I did play it like half an hour, maybe less, at like a friend's house before we were going out, and he told me to try out this weapon, that like once you fire it, it like vibrates, and I'm like, okay, cool, it's like it's rumbling or whatever. But then he told me to inspect the name, and it was like a dildo gun. It was a gun that was a dildo, and when you trigger, it like vibrates even harder than like a normal gun because it's like it's a joke.
Yeah.
And so I always thought that it was like this raunchy sort of like shooter thing with like a lots of like almost Doom levels of blood and gore. So is Borderlands a raunchy blood and gore kind of shooter, but like
Raunchy,
alien?
yes. Blood and gore, kind of hard to say. I think because of the cell shading element to it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, the
not
art
really.
style.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's really about the ridiculous guns. So like
Yeah.
there being a dildo gun. There's I know I think it's the first Borderlands game. There is a shotgun. That it's called Say Cheese. I think it's is the name of the shotgun. And when you fire it, especially if you fire it against a wall, the spray is a smiley face. Like
Oh.
there's just silly things that happen like all the time. Or there's a gun in the third game that insults you every time you fire. Because it's like you pick it up, you loot it off of like one of the baddies, and like uh, they've hacked it to only work for them and to insult anybody else who has the audacity to shoot their gun. But yeah, it's that kind of ridiculousness.
Hmm. So going into it with that preconception of what the game is, because I knew it was gun centric, and I knew it was raunchy, and I thought it was going to be like gory. I was disappointed, but I'm also, dare I say, not okay. I was gonna say I'm the target audience. I'm not the target audience, but I am like the
I don't know
person
who
that
this.
I am the
Valid.
person who is marketed to, because I've never seen the movie. I'm in the age demographic, and I should have like heard of the video games. And even if I didn't, like this movie should have tried its best to market it to me. And then even in watching it, felt like I was let down.
I went in with very low expectations. Like I'll just say, like I went in like when you were talking about it, you're like, it looks terrible. I was like, I don't really think it looks that bad. Like just from the trailers, I don't think it looked that bad. And I don't think that the trailers. I think the trailers look much better than what this movie was. It looked like it was going to be fun and goofy. Um, it's not. And I usually, when I go into a movie that's like really poor, it's pretty hard for me to be like, no, this is terrible. This movie's really bad. This movie's just like not a good movie. It's just not good. There's like even on like a like it's. I think a lot of the jokes fall flat. I think a lot of the performances fall flat. Like Kate Blanchett's one of the greatest actors of all time. She has like 8 or 9 Academy Award nominations. Awful. Honestly, really bad. Some of the line delivery, like very, very bad. And I don't even know if that's on her as much as that's on the director, but just like I laughed at the claptrap stuff. Not all the time, but like that got some chuckles out of me. I thought
And
that
that
was
was
like
Jack
probably
Black.
yeah, shout out. I thought Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina, despite knowing nothing about the character, was enjoyable. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis, it was one note, but there were a couple times where I was like, I didn't actually laugh, but I was like, well, that's funny. But yeah, Kevin Hart, I don't think was bad. The opening scene was probably the best part of the movie.
Yep.
That was I was like, oh, this movie isn't as shit. This movie isn't a 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, and then that was the
Yep.
peak of the movie. That was the peak of the movie.
And then
I was like, oh no, I was like,
Yep.
this movie's gonna be goofy. It's gonna be kind of funny. It's gonna be like whatever. It's gonna be a whatever turn your brain off movie. I couldn't even turn my brain off. Like I just had to like be there in my thoughts while this movie was going on. And yeah, it's just, and we can kind of talk a little bit more about it, I guess, as we go into spoiler stuff. But just like, yeah, I want to know
Like,
more if like this story is even a story in the games or what.
No,
I,
it's not. The
What?
no,
no, of
not at
course not.
all.
Of course not, dude.
First of
What
all,
a what a bizarre way to take the story.
they just give you Psycho Krieg, played by Florian Montanou, who Dylan, you would remember as being Razor Fist in Shang-Chi. He was the guy with the sword for a hand.
Oh,
Um, he was also, what else did he do? Oh, he's also Victor Drago in the Creed series.
Ah,
oh,
But let me pull this up super quick. Yeah, so Psycho Krieg's journey is incredible because the bandits are the nameless, faceless mooks. Literally, they all wear masks that show up all the time in in the games. And
it's on the
Psycho
cover.
Krieg is a hmm?
It's the cover of the game. He's
Yep.
got like the finger gun to the head.
And so to get Psycho Krieg is like they've been able to like domesticate a wild beast in a way because like while the bandits are human still, it's like the idea is that this world has warped their minds so much. And Psycho Creek has a very impressive journey in Borderlands 3, but we meet him as a DLC character in Borderlands 2. Tiny Tina, also a DLC character in Borderlands 2, and it's more so the fact that she is like she's the first child you meet in the Borderlands world. And you're like, "Oh, you've had a really rough go. I'm like so sorry." Like as wacky and crazy as all this has just been adults messing around or like fighting each other. Now there's this kid in the crossfire who also has had to grow themselves up in a way. We see a little bit of that, but the relationship and the journey that Tiny Tina goes through involves um, Kate Blanchett's character, involves Kevin Hart's character, and two other characters who we don't even see in this movie. One of the most important relationships that she has is with a character named Brick, who doesn't show up. There's also Mordecai, who is they were the original four, and yeah, it they shit the bed big time by trying to create a new story when I think if they took the time and really like fleshed out some beats for even if you were to merge Borderlands 1 and 2 and try to make that one story, it's very possible. And there are some emotional things you can have happen if you take your time.
Is Atlas even a company in the games?
Yes.
Okay.
Although I don't remember Atlas having any involvement at all with Tiny Tina. Because it is a lot about like different corporations having different guns and the different each corporation has like a thing. So like I forget Atlas's thing. It might be like elemental damage, or no, that's Blood off. But there was opportunity to be intentional about a lot of the stuff we see, and they just weren't.
Do you want to talk spoilers?
Feel free, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
does anybody gonna care about spoilers?
This is probably gonna be our lowest listened to episode, TBH.
Hey, the discussion was good.
Discussion was
Avatar.
good.
There is a world where maybe it is not in development hell, and this could be very, very good, right? If the name of the game is wacky guns in like in a world where guns are wacky, um, just like give me like the barest of hero's journey. That's like, hey, there's this MacGuffin, which Kate Blanchett explains that there's this vault, and here's this inciting incident with the girl, with Tiny Tina, and then just like the whole movie is a road trip movie, but there's guns and action, and it just like there's no care. Because I mean, that whole like third act with like the Firehawk is just so like what, like so out of left field for me. There's no setup for it at all.
Right.
There's no intentionality. It just like shows up.
There's a brief setup in the beginning, but I
What was the setup in the
none
beginning?
of that is in the game. They show like the Firehawk symbol a few times. That's all. That's like the only thing that is like. Is there anything about Firehawks or a vault in the video games? Is that a
Yeah,
thing?
the whole point of the game is to get to the vault. Like everybody's
Okay.
chasing this vault. Um, and the Firehawk, I'm trying to remember now. The Firehawk is Lilith's like moniker because that is how her abilities show up. She is, gosh, now I'm forgetting it. She's Lilith is a part of this very, very exclusive like race of people. They're all women. Every Borderland game includes one of them, but they are like super tiny in number.
A siren Mordecai.
Yes, the sirens. And so the sirens are the ones who have more magical.
Oh, that's why Jamie Lee Curtis says a siren. I thought she just mixed up the mythology because I thought she meant to say phoenix because she gets hit by the cannon ship and then rises with like the wings.
Yeah, yeah.
She says like, "Oh, it's a siren," and I'm like, "That's not a siren. That's a phoenix." But okay, cool.
So the sirens are a group of women, or a group of people who are all women. Um, there are very, very, very few of them in the world. Kate Blanchett is one. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to super care. Uh, Tannis, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, is also one.
Well, spoilers for the second Borderlands movie, dude.
Really, spoilers for the third
Which
Borderlands
doesn't even
game.
make sense because then like it's I guess maybe Jamie Lee Curtis knew the entire time, but it didn't seem to be that she knew the entire time, and then her character to actually then be one. Man, that's bad. God, that's so bad. It's like you're doing more work to make a dumb story when the real story's just there.
Yeah,
And the real story is like so low, right? Like it's just a non-story.
yeah. It's you. So that the whole journey of like hopping in the car and like being on that van to get you to the first area.
Hmm.
That is pretty much that's a kind of beat for beat moment of like the first 60 seconds of the game. But yeah, you're making your way through trying to find the vault. Um, I don't even think you're necessarily trying to find vault keys. But yeah, there is this like resistance that's fighting against Atlas. Shout out to Crimson Lance, which is again Borderlands just being a wacky, wacky world because Crimson Lance is, I think, there's more allusions to it. I think it's supposed to represent a tampon.
Ha.
Yeah, but that's kind of what we're dealing with here, you know.
So Eli Roth, the only thing I really knew about Eli Roth is that he's the Bear Jew in
Yeah,
Inglorious Bastards. Is like I've just remembered that name as that role, and he's like he did Hostel, and he's done a couple other like kind of horror movies. His shit is either like just looking at his filmography, it either seems like decent horror movie that with it that like turns a good profit because it's horror, or legitimately awful movies that don't make money. Um, so
That's what
it
I was
seemed a
telling
little
Vaughn.
risky.
That's what I was telling Vaughn before we recorded. I was like, wait, I thought Eli Roth was like a name. It's like these movies are ass.
Like, and especially when it's like anything that seems to venture outside of horror for the most part appears to go wrong, other than it looks like some weird Jack Black like kids almost movie he did. But like this I mean I don't know if it's that easy. This seems like it would have been perfect for James Gunn. Like some like in terms of and Tim Roth's name is all over this. He made sure that he wanted everyone to know that this is directed, written, produced, created story by Tim Roth, or Eli Roth, I should say. Sorry, um, but man, this is like there's like certain things too. Like I saw it on Twitter before I saw the movie, then I saw it. The scene where they open the vault, you can
Yeah,
see someone in
yeah,
the crew helping them open the vault.
yeah.
There are other scenes where like there are other scenes in it where like it someone thinks they're off camera and you can tell they like dropped for a second. And it's not like crazy. It's not like they're like go to completely out of character, but you can see them like they're running and then like for the last few frames they're like kind of just like jogging, like
All right, let
small
me
little
eat.
stuff like that. I don't think I would have noticed that if I hadn't saw the little vault thing beforehand, but then that was like in my head now when I was watching it, I was like, okay, how many fuck ups happened in this movie? Like how many Starbucks cups can I catch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um and so I just like it really frustrates me as like a video game fan that has watched so many video game adaptations fail. I think from a pure talent level in the sense of like these are who are attached to the story, this is basically up there with Assassin's Creed as like how like level of casting just in terms of like raw talent of the actors and like what we were given. Um this is like it's so damning. And I don't it's like one of those things like who is this for? It's just gonna piss off the like fans, the hardcore fans. So the buzz is gonna be bad. IGN is gonna go cover this and they're gonna trash it. So the initial buzz is gonna be bad. Variety
Yeah.
and Hollywood Reporter, they're not gonna give a shit because it's a video game movie and video game movies are bad. So like why are you trying to make something that's like appeasing general audiences when you know that it's nothing like the OGs, the core audience. Like that shit never works. It never works.
Fun fact: I own a digital copy of Assassin's Creed. Ubisoft gave it to me for
Oh,
something.
there it is. It's like on
They were
purpose.
giving away. They were giving it away for something, and I just like redeemed it, and I have. I just have it, but I've never seen it. I do want to say something nice. The art style was pretty cool. Like the world building was pretty cool. Having never played the game, it looked pretty similar to what I've seen or what I know of Borderlands in my mind.
I thought it looks pretty decent. Yeah,
But that's
Sure.
it. No,
I appreciated that a lot of it looked like it was filmed kind of
practically.
in
Yeah, right.
practically, which I really
Yeah,
dug. For the most part, there was some like CG stuff that like really kind of stuck out, but
dude, that
um,
whole like the destruction when they first meet Tiny Tina, just so bad.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah.
That is that was the part that felt the most accurate to the game, though, to me.
The scene where that thing falls and it like looks like a ramp, I'm like, oh, that's straight out of a video game. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I was one of those things where I was like, this has to be like very realistic because the shot was kind of weird. I was like, that's weird. And I was like, nah, that's from the game. That's like telling you got to run up and jump on that thing.
Hmm.
I figured.
Yeah, I guess the rating makes sense. I just had to double check. This was a PG-13 movie. Um,
It should have. I thought it was R. It should have been an R.
they could have done more with an R. Also, PG-13, and to include Mad Moxie, which was Gina Gershon's character, who had her like boobs like lifted up to high heaven. I'm like, well, why include Moxie at all?
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty, and like I know, like Moxie is one of the more major characters in the series, but you can you can split up the responsibility or like the unit of what am I trying to say? The responsibility of sharing like the world and like people who are in sanctuary who are part of the resistance. There were other characters you could have used that weren't Mad Moxie, because if you include Mad Moxie but you don't have her be as crazy suggestive and like sexual as she is in the games, just seems odd.
That's the watering hole in the hero's journey where the characters meet the next person. Speaking of going back to studying film, you know.
I had never heard of that person. I thought that was a porn star. That's an actor.
Hmm.
I thought that was a just the name Gina like it was one of those things I was just like, oh, that's got to be a like. And then when you mentioned that person, I just went and looked up at it. No, she's just an actor.
I will
She's
say,
62. The fuck.
yeah. So Hema did say that she was surprised that there were a lot of older women cast. You know, Kate
Well,
Blanchett, Jamie Lee
Kate
Curtis.
Blanchett's got to be probably in her 50s, maybe
Yeah,
40s.
still though, for an action
Yeah,
movie
but
to be a
no,
lead.
absolutely. And I actually thought she did pretty decent. To be fair, to me, it was taking me out of like I'm like, Jamie Lee Curtis and Kate Blanchett got to be like really similar in age, and like they're trying to like play them as like these different
Yeah.
type. It was just like taking me out, and it's not like it's because this isn't a no one. This is fucking Kate Blanchett. Like this isn't like just some random like actor. Like I just I could not believe what they were trying to do like with that. Um, I don't know. It was
Shout out to everybody for getting the bag.
Yeah. I don't know why I
Also,
was thinking this. Sorry, Vaughn.
no, you go ahead.
But to kind of circle back to our discussion about like putting in the work for somebody else to reap the rewards, I couldn't stop thinking about a potential cyberpunk movie off of some of the better beats from this one. Have we all ever played Cyberpunk 2077?
I haven't played it all the way through, but I don't think they would ever put a movie out with how poorly that movie was received or the game was received.
The game is fixed now. Shout out
I
to
understand
Idris
that.
Elba.
Is this Elba?
I know that like they've gone through
Yeah,
and fixed
Idris
it
Elba is in
in the
Cyberpunk DLC.
DLC,
Yeah, that's
like
Okay.
in the
V-Day or whatever.
trailer. In the trailer for the DLC, he's like in a bar and he's like surrounded, and the DLC is like it's like a spy thriller thing, and so his like final line in the DLC is like, "And never forget, the game is fixed," or like the game is fixed now, and people were like, "Oh, it's because Cyberpunk was broken and now it's fixed, so go back and play
Yeah,
it."
yeah, yeah.
But like the public perception at large, I think, is still so negative on that movie, and like that studio, CD Projekt Red, is like for that they are under this fucking microscope now from fans that I do not
I
like.
disagree
Alrighty,
because
I
the game was fixed and the anime brought a lot of people over. The Cyberpunk anime is so good that it basically reignited Cyberpunk hype again, and more people started talking about Cyberpunk, and then Cyberpunk 2.0 came out with the DLC, and it literally fixed everything wrong. And they
that's
probably
not the
will never
only
make
that
a
happens with a
Cyberpunk
lot of
movie.
games though. That happens
Yeah,
with a lot of games. It happened with Battlefront 2. They're never. I don't think they'll ever make a Battlefront 3. Like these things happen a lot with video games, and it like one of those things of like, oh, the game's good now. Like that does happen a lot, but that initial taste at large, Cyberpunk was not just like that was popular. That was at it was at a GTA level of hype. As someone that like worked at GameStop, I would have people come in every day like asking about it that like would never come in and shop at GameStop. People just wanted that game, and it left such a poor taste in the broad. Like no, most people don't know the game's fixed. Most people don't know like those things. Like so, if someone sees a trailer for that, they're gonna be like, "Nah, fuck that game." That's all. I think it'd be really cool. I'd totally be on board to see Keanu and all of that. Like I think it would be very cool. I just think it would fail miserably.
I don't know about misery, but it probably would fail just because video games have that like they just for some reason can't get a break when it comes to translating the mediums. The success stories you can count on like one hand, like Sonic, and that's it.
Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario
It's
Brothers 2,
animated. It's animated. Like and Last of Us.
3.
Yeah. I think TV is the better route to go because most video game stories are long. And so I just feel like TV is better for so much of it. Like I've always thought like ODST, I think it is shocking that there is not a like Band of Brothers type of story for Halo ODST. It is perfectly there for you to adapt. Same thing with Halo Reach. I actually think Halo Reach could be made into a movie. They did season 2 storyline. They also did it off fucking screen for season 2 of Halo. And I think Halo Reach and what happens at the very end of that game, I actually think in a movie would be very, very cool if done well. But I think it's just like movies aren't the medium for most of these things, I feel.
I mean, now that people are staying at home and streaming, definitely like a 10 episode hour long, or 10 episodes 1 hour each episode series of Halo could be good. Not
Yeah.
not with this. There was a rumor that Christopher Nolan wants to pick it up for Netflix. Like they want to buy the rights to Halo off of Paramount because Paramount just X'd it. It was a rumor. I'm not sure if it's
bullshit. He would never do it with Netflix. He wants it on the screen. He'll never do TV.
He'll never do TV.
I shouldn't say literally never. Who he is as a person. Jonathan Nolan, I'd believe it. If it was Jonathan Nolan, I would absolutely believe it because Jonathan Nolan doesn't do anything for movies. Christopher Nolan is very particular about what studios he wants to work with. He also only has a deal with Universal, so he
Universal now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So be a Peacock.
But like, sure.
Halo
I don't.
Peacock.
I think he would maybe if he could find a way to do it like for movie theaters. I think he would do it, but I don't. I think that's just something someone wrote and to make it like sound good because it doesn't. There's like a lot of things that don't track with A, his contract, B, who he is as a person, what he said.
Because I think they are trying to sell off the Halo rights because it's just dead now. But I think video games, again, as a whole, I think it depends on which video game you adapt. But at the same time, Sonic is a side-scrolling hedgehog and somehow is one of the greatest live-action greatest movie adaptations out there.
Yeah.
I'm slightly excited for Zelda. I trust Nintendo. I really trust Nintendo.
That's bold of you.
To trust Nintendo?
To make a movie? Yes.
To make us... Yeah.
I mean, look at what Mario... Mario is like a solid movie. I trust Nintendo to make sure that they are putting...
Give me a track record.
No, but Zelda is also going to be live action, right? It's not going to be...
Oh, animated. Is it going to be live action? Then
I think so. I think I heard that it was live action. So that's like... yeah.
It's not going to work, and you need like that kind of...
You need the freedom of animation to make it a good movie.
Yeah.
And Link doesn't talk, so what are we doing now?
Fair.
Chris Pratt to voice Link.
Jesus.
If it's live action, I have no hope. No.
Yeah. But in the story of like what Zelda games are to Nintendo versus what like Mario games are to Nintendo, it's also a bit harder to adapt because Zelda games have always been not story driven or not linear, and Nintendo and Mario games have always been linear. So a linear narrative in the Mario movie makes sense, but like a non-linear Zelda doesn't really translate well. I can see maybe a Zelda TV show,
like Majora's Mask. Like the older Zelda games weren't open world. It's only the newer Zelda games that are open world.
No, I know, but like the story, like the fact that there is a Zelda timeline that's not in order, was like somewhat intentional from the start.
Oh, definitely,
and like that's what I was saying. So
I get you. Yeah.
To do one last quick little tie-in, watching this movie, Borderlands, made me think. I already had my gears turning based off of Deadpool and Wolverine because there's a slight spoilers. Deadpool at one point called Wolverine Honey Badger affectionately, and there is a character, Honey Badger, who is a part of the if you think about like the Bat family, the Wolverine family, there is a character named Honey Badger who is in that, and Ariana Greenblatt would be perfect for that character, if not for the fact that by the time that character has enough relevance to be on screen, Ariana Greenblatt will be too old. But I just thought that little. I was like, oh, this is the honey badger you're looking for.
Hmm.
Maybe she'll voice her. I don't know. We'll see.
You want to get to
I'm
ratings?
looking at who the director is for this
-2.
movie. This is a 1. I really didn't like this
Positive?
movie.
A positive one?
There's nothing enjoyable about this movie. No. I got nothing on the negative side. No. I didn't enjoy myself. There was a couple times where I was like, but not enough for me to ever want to like go back and enjoy the content. Mm-mm.
I
You know
like
what? I agree.
on my watch, which I hated.
And it's a 90-minute movie. I looked it up. It's hour and 40.
Yeah, which I believe, because like when I got my check from Alamo, I walked over to Alamo to go see it so fucking early in it. I was like, oh shit, this movie must be super quick, although it felt really long just because it was.
I was gonna say, so I was gonna bring up a point, another positive point, that it felt pretty short. Like the pacing was pretty good. Then I looked up how long it was, and I was like, oh, that's why. That's why it felt short, because it was short. It's only an hour and a half.
So the director of the Zelda movies, his name is Wes Ball. He did the Maze Runner movies, which I've never seen, and then he also did the newest Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh, okay.
And so, and it's being produced by the guy that did Into the Spider-Verse.
But is it live action or is it animated?
It's live action. He says other than Star Wars, the only thing I like played or did more as a kid was Zelda. So it seems like he's a huge fan. And it's done by. It's being produced by the guy. He produced basically a ton of the Marvel non-MCU movies. So like Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man, Blade 2.
Is Universal still attached?
I don't know.
I wonder if it'll be like a Disney live action kind of thing where it's like IRL but live action, which would suck.
It will be,
in my opinion.
It'll be produced by Nintendo, and then this guy Ari Arad, and then it will be co-financed between Nintendo and Sony. Sony's really like.
I wonder legally how that works out then, because they have that big contract with Illumination. So, like, how much are they allowed to divulge into other projects?
Yeah.
Although Sony is also Japanese, and it makes sense that the Japanese pride in Nintendo would work with a Japanese company like Sony. But
yeah, and he said that he wants it to be he feel like a real life take on the work of Miyazaki, which is a wild sentence to say out loud. And that is putting a big old. I mean, he's not saying anything that like he's like, hey, I love it. It seems like he's very much a fan, which I can appreciate in and of itself. And we'll see. I'm not expecting much. It doesn't seem like it's something that's going to work in live action, regardless.
We shall see.
It depends on what story they go through.
I don't know. Ganondorf's a big bad. Oh God, what are we going to do now?
It could be Ganon, the pig Ganon. It could be the wizard. I forget the wizard's name. Yeah.
Zant?
Is it Zant? Or...
There was a wizard. I know there's a character named Zant. I don't know if Zant's a wizard.
Yeah, sometimes there's a villain that's a wizard, but I don't remember what his name is. I mean, I think the safest bet would be Ocarina of Time. I mean, that's like everyone's favorite Zelda game. Although the new Switch ones, Breath of the Wild and this other one,
Tears
I forget what it's called.
Story,
Tears of the Kingdom. Thank you.
It's not a good that world is not really interesting to live in. I love the games; they're very fun to play, but I think the actual story and overall world's pretty
I think the thing that makes it interesting are the mechanics of the game for Breath of the Wild,
both of them,
and Tears of the Kingdom. I think too that based on where they have placed it in the timeline, based on some of the evidence, that it's just there are a lot of Easter eggs for deep Zelda lore for you to uncover that wouldn't necessarily translate to film.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ocarina of Time, I think, is the story because that's been adapted to how many game systems now?
Hmm.
Like, there's been a re-release of Ocarina of Time. I feel like every 3 years.
Was it on the Wii? I think it was on the Wii, right?
Yep.
Like the virtual console was on the Wii, on the 3DS. They re-released it again on the Switch. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'd give it a. I guess I'm gonna side with Dylan and give it a -1, or sorry, a +1, because you're right. It wasn't enjoyable, but it's not a 0. It wasn't like completely bad. I did like smirk or like breathe out of my nose a couple times.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's not an enjoyable movie. There's the bones of a decent movie is there. I saw the opening scene.
Yeah,
I saw that
yeah,
opening scene.
Fair.
yeah. This could have been a lot better. Lifeless. I've seen be thrown around the word lifeless, soulless, empty.
Apparently, and I don't know how true this is. Apparently, it was just very hard when they had to do reshoots to get all of them together. So I don't know if they were like
I bet.
filming scenes with like just one person, like one of the people present, and they had to like film it again with like
I
another
mean,
person present.
yeah, everybody involved is actively
Busy.
working. Yeah. I could imagine if it's like, okay, we're in reshoot territory. Yeah, good
Yeah,
luck.
yeah. Because this wasn't development hell, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it when I go to the little development standpoint. Oh no, God, this is for the video game. Get out of here. It was like filmed during the pandemic, but they had to like keep kind of going back.
Damn.
And the guy that did the first Deadpool movie, like did the reshoots. Um,
Filmed during COVID. That's crazy. It came out 4 years later.
yeah, it in February 2020, Eli Roth was attached to direct with the screenplay written by Craig Mazin. Yeah, it looks like it was casted by 21. Filming started in April 21. And then in 23, it went through more reshoots. And then in June 2023, Craig Mazin removed his name from the project. Um,
There are bones of a good movie, and I would like to use those bones for a cyberpunk movie. Me personally.
Start a good broth.
Yeah. Let it simmer for a couple years, you know?
all right, fellas, anything else you want to talk about?
No.
No? Alrighty.
No.
So, as always, check the show notes. Please follow, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Reach out to us with any and all thoughts or concerns, anything else you want us to review or talk about.
If you watch the movie, let us know. We're getting an Excel spreadsheet. It's the three of us and the couple that was in my viewing. So there's 5 people so far. There's 6 people.
Let it
We got a
grow.
few people on my Alamo showing.
I have.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Well, what time did you guys go?
8.
Saturday
when?
at 7:30.
Saturday, 7:30, 8
Thursday
on
at 8.
Friday or Saturday? Thursday, opening day?
Makes sense because that the review embargo dropped like that day. So like unless you're like really on it, some people might not have even seen the review embargo. So they bought the
Mm,
tickets already. That's how you can tell the movie's terrible.
yeah.
Delayed
I
review.
mean, we did go to like a super late night showing because, hey, now that it's over, was kind of hoping we didn't talk about it. Was waiting until the last minute to see if I can save my money. But we went to an 11 o'clock showing last night, and there was us and another couple.
Do you still not have any kind of movie like subscription service?
They have the Cinemark one. I always bring it up. The Cinemark
But
one.
did you go to GCC at Cinemark?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Cinemark one is like 2 movies a month, right?
No, it's just no fees online. No fees online. 20% off concessions and uh, one movie ticket. But it's only $10 a month, so it's
Got you.
BFD. You know. It's $10. It's super affordable, and the concessions like that just like racks up. Dude, 20% off the entire time every time we go.
Yeah.
I think if you did that for a few months and the AMC for a few months, I do think you would save more with AMC.
There's no parking
Just
in
saying.
downtown SF, dude. Got to pay for parking.
Yeah.
That's trash. They don't
It's
even
a
do
big
any
thing.
kind of
It's a big
they don't
one.
do any kind of validation.
It's technically in a different building. It's public
Yeah.
SF parking.
Montreal's across the street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Trash.
And SF has weird like hours where like or parking hours where like between this hour and this hour it's like a certain fee, and then between this hour and this hour is a certain fee. And if you're there like at night, it's like even weird. Yeah, yeah.
Where in SF do you live?
Bayview. Shout out to Candlestick Point, Candlestick Park.
Giants play there.
Used to.
Oh.
Indeed. Well, gents, that's my time. Dylan,
All right.
take us home.
Class dismissed.